Thanks for stopping by my channel and welcome to day 11 of Sparkmas, where I'm going to teach you how to make this reversible tree skirt. So I have this little 3-foot Christmas tree that just needs something to cover the base. So I'm just using a ruler, you can use measuring tape, whatever, and you just want to see like how far you want your tree skirt to go. I ended up doing 9 inches because you want to give yourself some seam allowance. I wish I would have given myself a little bit more seam allowance, but that's okay. So what I did is I took the 9 inches, which is the radius, and I doubled it to get 18, which is the diameter. And then you're going to want to cut a square of fabric that is slightly bigger than that. This is where I wish I would have gone a little bit bigger, but I actually had this scrap piece of fabric that was bigger than 18 inches. So I ended up doing like 19 and a half, but I wish I would have gone up to give myself a little bit more seam allowance. You'll see why soon. Now fold into quarters, so just fold in half and then half again. Then I am taking painter's tape and measuring it out to 9 inches. Really, you can just start at the point where everything is folded and then measure along one side and use your length. You can also use a string, but you don't want it to be like a stretchy string. You want something that's going to hold its shape when you go to draw your line for your circle, your curved line. You're then going to use that tape and position it so that the edge matches up in that folded corner. You want to make sure it's the folded corner. And you're going to use some type of chalk or erasable, heat erasable marker, and just mark out little dashes and then connect all of the dashes to make your little curved edge. Make sure that you're doing this evenly, because the more precise you are in this area, the better your circle will be. So I'm just double checking everything, filling things in, and making sure my line is visible. So you can see a little bit. It's kind of hard to tell. I'm going back over, but I have like a slight curve because of that tape. And then I'm going to just take scissors and cut around that line I just drew. And this is going to give you your circle for your skirt. And you can keep it folded, but I wanted to double check to see if it came out pretty well, and I'm pretty proud. That's a pretty good circle. So then we're going to fold it back into quarters, or just don't unfold it. And then I did 2.5 inches, and this is where I also wish I would have gone a little smaller. I wish I would have only done 1.5 inches or 2 inches for this inner circle. This is where the base of the tree is going to go through. But I did 2.5 inches. It was a little too big when seam allowance came to it, but I was just eyeballing this project. And we're going to do exactly what we did on the outside base, but for this inside part, making sure you're doing it on the folded corner. And once you have it cut out, this is the start of your tree skirt. You're going to use this to do another color for the reverse side. And like I said, I used my first cutout and I just lined it up. You could draw a line. It would probably be a little bit more accurate that way and then cut it, but I just placed it on top and cut around. I did have to do some touch-up cutting, but that was okay. It's just simple and easy to cut it out. So yeah, cut out your second color, and then wham kabam, you have 2 little circle skirts. Next, you're going to cut a slit that's going to be straight across. I just so happen to have the plaid that lined up really well with that, and then I'm going to use that kind of as a guide for the other piece as well. You could do this at the same time. It'd be a lot easier that way. But I just wanted to make sure I had a straight cut on both sides. With right sides together, we are going to pin around the whole piece except for one of the inside slit pieces. We're going to leave one of those open for turning, but go and pin almost the whole thing. I have it all pinned except for the one inside slit. And we are going to sew around this outside edge, this one side of the slit, the inside edge, and then leaving that one slit open. And now we're going to take it to our sewing machine. I am using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I'm just going to sew like I showed you guys, making sure you backstitch and do your basic sewing needs. The only thing you need to be careful about is with curves, especially the inside curve, just take it slow. If you need to pivot your fabric, make sure your needle is down before you move your fabric. And then at the corners, I have the needle down, then I lift the foot and I pivot my fabric so that way you get a really nice corner. And it's really that easy. So I'm at the other corner, foot down, lift up the presser foot, turn it, and sewing the inside curve is probably the hardest. Just go slow. And like I said, if you need to, make sure your needle is down before you lift and move your presser foot and fabric. But you're going to go around the inside edge, removing pins. I do not sew over pins. Remove them as you go. And then from there, we are ready to trim it up. This is probably my least favorite part. You're going to trim all of the corners, and then you're going to cut slits and triangles around the curve so that way it doesn't bunch up when we turn it right side out. So snip those corners and get to cutting slits. Be sure that you aren't cutting your stitches though. That will make you quite frustrated. I may have also cheated, and after I cut out a couple of these notches, I got sick of doing it and I went in and just trimmed that seam allowance a little bit closer because, you know, it's my own project and I can do what I want. But you're supposed to cut slits. Anyways, so once it's all trimmed down, slits cut, whatever you decide to do, you're going to turn it right side out. And this is actually pretty easy to do with flannel. You could also use quilting fabric. I didn't mention that before, but you can really use any fabric you want. You can also add batting to this if you want to make it a little fluffier, but because it's just a mini tree skirt, I wasn't too concerned. And then you're just going to want to roll those edges out. I use my scissors to point my corners. That's because my scissors are rounded at the end. So make sure you have those corners pointed out. You roll the edges. You can press them with an iron flat if you feel like you need to. And then I like using clips to just kind of keep it in place. Because I didn't press it with an iron and it's a little bit bulkier of a fabric versus cotton, I like to use these sewing clips to just kind of hold the seam in place for our top stitch. That's completely optional, it's up to you. And then with our opening, you're going to fold it in about a 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch, really up to you. But we do not have to be precise, just enough that it's going to stay. Make sure your corners are bent in and pointed the way you want them to, and use clips or pins to secure in place for sewing. Because next we're going to do a top stitch around the whole thing, just like we did, except this time we are also closing that opening up. So I'm just doing your typical top stitch. You can do this as far or close away as you want. Just make sure that you are closing that opening, and you can start wherever you want and end wherever you want. It's completely up to you. I did film all of this, but I sped it up and I'm gonna cut some of it out because you guys know what to do, right? At the corners, you're gonna have your needle down, you're gonna lift your presser foot, and then you're going to pivot, and then just go slow around those curves, and removing your pins or needles, or maybe you're super awesome and did it without. But yeah, you're just going to go around the entire thing. And yeah, that's it. And look at it. It's so cute and perfect and wonderful. Like I said, I wish I would have made the circle on the inside a little bit smaller, and I wish I would have made it a little bit longer, but that's okay. It does overlap itself, but I kind of like that. You can really fluff it up the way you want. And the one thing I decided that was I wanted more. So I actually am not finished. You can stop there. But I ended up taking this trim and hot gluing it around the outside edge. Now you could also have sewn this, but with how small of trim it is, hot glue is going to be our best friend in this case. And I just went all around, all the way up to the end. I only did the outside curve of it, but I think that really spruces it up. Yes, I did mean the pun of a tree skirt as like a spruce tree. Thank you. But okay, that's officially it. I think that makes my tree look so much cuter. It's just the little extra. And depending on my decor that year, I can either keep it red or flip it to black and white. My husband prefers the red side, but I love that the black and white actually matches the sign that I made. Both of them are so cute. Be sure to leave me a comment if you liked this, give this a like, and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope to see you next time.